So I stood up to be Green Party councillor 2 years ago, as did Stuart and Karin. We stood 3 candidates. Well, actually, there's a blip on a couple of other people, but that's kind of a, yeah. We stood 3 candidates to work very hard. There were a couple in Weston that paperwork didn't go exactly as planned, but we all got in, and we are delighted to be a team of 3. I'll give that very rapid backstory that it had been heavily Conservative across. Tom Limedorfer on here, this call, had worked tirelessly as a sole Green councillor for a long time in a very sea of blue. Richard Lawson, I think prior to that, had also been that same role, a sole Green councillor working in a mixed field. And so we have had Green presence in North Somerset, but now we're delighted to have 3 of us, and we're delighted to be in a landscape that is a rainbow administration. And I'm really pleased to say that we're still, that for me, that's a successful working relationship. So the independents are the biggest party, then Lib Dems, then Labour with 6 and Greens with 3. And together we make the administration, we make the majority, and we drive forward the agenda for the council. We were offered a position on the executive. So in the cabinet of 8, we got offered the position of cabinet member for climate emergency and the environment. I looked to my left at Stuart, and he said, "Oh, I'm a bit busy." And I looked to my right at Karin, and she went, "Oh, I'm retired." And so I went, "Okay, are you sure you want me to do this?" And so I've been doing it for the past year and a half, and I enjoy doing it. I enjoy being busy despite having a 5-year-old and 2-year-old, and we're stuck in, and we're deep in this all together, and we're working hard at this. So I thought I would just give you some highlights or where are we going? I'm going to just go. So we declared a climate emergency. That was just actually Tom declared the climate emergency with Lib Dem Mike Bell. That was declared unanimously before we got in. And then we worked together to, in a cross-working party, to come up with a strategy and an action plan. We consulted upon that. We did some baselines at the beginning of the year so that we know what the emissions are for the council and for the area. And then we know what we're really talking about. And then we know what are the biggest to work out where we should be exerting our energy. And the council website is pretty good for now having that information available to you, and I can share some links, but do feel free to go to North Somerset Council website and look for climate change. For a long time, it has been under nuisance, and now it is under priority. So there's another nice move. Instead of, obviously it's a nuisance that climate change is happening, but it's a priority now that we address it. So we have introduced carbon literacy training in the past month, and we are the first council in the country to have carbon literacy training for our elected members. So that's the likes of us who vote through policy and vote on decision making. And we push through that the senior management, the officers, so they're the staff, should attend that. So the chief executive attended that. The directors of departments attended that. The heads of finance were involved. And since then, I've had a massively positive experience of the chief exec saying, "I need to have proper meetings with you more often to push this agenda forward. It's so important. Yes, COVID is going on. Yes, other things are going on, but that climate agenda is a priority for this council. We've committed to a vision for this administration to be open, fairer and greener. And for me, that feels like a really good fit for the Green Party. So we may only be 3 of 50, but I do believe we're punching above our weight. I do believe this council is making the right commitments, and it's not always easy in a landscape of so many other pressures. So quick headline, 42% of the emissions for North Somerset, greenhouse gas emissions, are car journeys. So anyone who wants to spend an hour or 2 talking about waste and recycling, that's less than 5%. So we need to be talking about how we have to get out of the cars. It's about 30% on houses, 30% on commercial property, heating and lighting of those. So your big ones, your bang for your buck is your car journeys. Let's get walking and cycling instead. And then your heating and your power in your house and your businesses. Really good carbon literacy training, really good things coming next. I think I'm going to move briefly on to the local plan, then I'll stop talking and I'll let other people talk. One of the big reasons that I stood up to be a councillor, and many of us did, is this area had the pressure of something called the Joint Spatial Plan coming upon us all, the JSP, and that was a any department has, any council has to come up with a local plan that says where would housing go for the next 10 or 15 or 20 years. The JSP was quite a toxic experience for the members of the public, and we often felt like things were happening to us without us being in control or in the conversation. And many of us didn't think that climate change was being considered. So we stood up to try to do this. The JSP, since we got in, fell. The inspectorate said that it was a bit rubbish. And now we have to come, and now the council is obliged to come up with a local plan, but still for a vast number of houses. And we don't believe in those number of houses. We do believe there is a housing need. And we do believe there is affordable housing need. But what gets built by the mass developers is 4 and 5 bed executive expensive houses, and that will not solve the housing crisis. So it's a complex subject. But right now, the local plan has been we did a consultation for the challenges. And what came out of that was that the community and residents saw climate change and climate emergency as a priority. They saw protecting green and open spaces as a priority. They saw not building on the floodplain as a priority, and they saw using brownfield sites. But next is the choices document, where a number of choices have been presented. And I would urge Green Party members to have a look at these documents and try to engage with them. I think they are in better plain English than previous versions. I hate it when it gets into jargon and feels like you're trying to trick somebody or trying to make someone read 100 pages before they're allowed to comment, because I don't think that reflects real life. So I'm pushing hard for that. So do take a look, and maybe we can have some discussion on the Q&As. One thing that's on my mind is, could the Greens respond? So there are 5 choices on the table, not that it's there are 5 approaches being considered, but the 5th approach is a blank map, and it's people saying, it's the officers saying, have you still got another idea up your sleeve, even though pretty much we're an extremely constrained one, so there isn't really anywhere. Could the Greens put in the map that laid down the bat protection, the floodplain, the SSSIs, the area of outstanding natural beauty, and actually just went, look at all these constraints? I don't know, where do we go from there? If we care about this planet, if we care about ecology, if we care about a nature emergency, can we really put 20,000 new houses in here between now and 2035? So there's some, I don't know, some food for thought. It's a bit of a complex and challenging environment. But if we don't make a plan, the mass house builders get to choose what they like, and they will pick apart our countryside, and they will not do it in a sustainable way. And actually, the Greens have a role to play in designing and building a future that is fit for purpose and is responding to the climate emergency. And we know what's coming, and we know, and I just think we can build a beautiful future that has compromise and is good for everybody. So I'll let Stuart come in, and then we're going to get to quick Q&As. And Karin.
Thank you, Bridget. I think most of you know me, but I'll do a brief introduction for those that might. So my name is Stuart McQuillan. I live in Long Ashton, so about as close to Bristol as you can get without being in Bristol's jurisdiction, right on the edge of North Somerset, which causes its own issues. And its own unique sort of perspective in many ways. So I stood for election 3 times and gradually increasing the majority. Eating away at the majority each time, and with the luck last time I was one of the 3 to get elected. I'm part of a 2-member ward, and I have a very good relationship with my Lib Dem counterpart, and echo everything Bridget said about cross-party working in the Rainbow Alliance. I think it works very well. We don't always agree on everything, but we generally work very well as a group. So it's a small group. I'm nominally the deputy of the Green Group, and because Bridget has a position on the executive and is limited to which committees she's on, Karin and I tend to sit on a lot of policy and scrutiny committees. So I sit on children's and young people services, and what we call colloquially COCO, which is the Communities and Corporate Policy Scrutiny Panel, which has got a huge remit. And I'm currently the vice chair of that, working with the excellent independent councillor Steve Bridger for Yatton, and that's been very busy at the moment, that committee, and taken up an awful lot of time, but done a lot of good work. I'll get back to that in a second. And finally, also, I've sat on planning for the last couple of years and was one of the councillors to vote against Bristol Airport expansion, which made me quite happy. So that really, to feel that day, that moment will always live with me. And I know Karin also spoke very eloquently on that day, as did Bridget. But yeah, definitely, that was one of the reasons I became a councillor, to make a difference. And I think that day you could tell how the change of the political makeup and the change of the landscape had meant that vote was going to go decisively the opposite way to which Bristol Airport expected it to go. And it was quite a satisfactory moment. So more recently, so as I said, COCO, there's a waste subgroup. I've been heavily involved in that, and we've been looking at things like the problems caused by some of the chat have been talking about Amazon. So we've been talking about what we call the Amazon effect, which is that everyone is now spending more time indoors because of COVID. People are generating more waste, particularly vast amounts of cardboard. So we've been, and that's a difficult problem to solve. Because the recycling contractor hasn't got any more space. So looking at that, and obviously you would have seen in the news recently that the North Somerset has decided to go down the road of creating a local authority operated arm's length company to look after recycling and waste. So the committee, COCO, is currently meeting weekly to look at the possibilities there, and as the green in the room there, I'm trying to make sure that we impart the good values in the North Somerset Council that we have now, the openness, the greenness into the new company. So and they're at the stage now where they've taken legal advice and they're recruiting a chief executive for that company. That's going to be a real challenge, trying to stand up that company by next year and transition the contract from the current provider. So yeah, absolutely. The other sorts of things I've been involved in is sort of environmental crime. I pushed quite hard for North Somerset to do more on fly tipping. And historically, it's always been very, very good at collecting it, but it hasn't always had a lot of enforcement resource. But thanks to the change in administration and good work by councillors and the executive, that's changing now, and that they've now got a dedicated officer, and they're now looking at contracting in some additional support on that. So that's improving. The other thing I've been doing recently is I worked with the Lib Dem group on amending the climate emergency to encompass the ecological emergency or the nature emergency, and trying to make sure biodiversity is part of the local plan, as well as climate and as well as housing numbers. And actually, Bridget's explained the dilemma really well already. We have a lot of SSIs, we have the MENDIPs, we have lots of very important green space, and we have these slightly ridiculous housing numbers, and how are we going to deal with it? And one of the council's response to that, which I was briefed on today, and I will commend to you to look at when it comes out for consultation shortly, is the green infrastructure strategy, which sounds really complicated, but it's generally a series of steps to try and link green spaces and make them useful. So it's about linking habitats, linking areas of trees to form successful ecosystems and woodland and things. So I've got involved in lots of environmental projects on COCO, and playing to the fact that that's my background. So I work part-time still in my civil service role, where I'm environmental policy. So I've been able to bring that to the fore a little bit as well. So yes, absolutely. Do look at the green infrastructure strategy when it comes. It's very useful. Do comment on the local plan. And there's another conversation out, but I won't steal Karin's thunder, because Karin's going to talk about that one. And I'll hand over to Karin at this point. And so, yeah, nice to see you all. And I'll pass over to Councillor Haverson.
Okay, I've unmuted myself. Excuse me. Yes, I mean, like Stuart and Bridget, I was very new to all of this a year and a half ago. And for me especially, it was a really steep learning curve because my background really hasn't prepared me for most of the things that are occurring at council level. So I've really had to really pull up my socks and get on with it. I have enjoyed it to quite a large extent, but it's also been quite challenging, and it doesn't help that I'm more or less the same age as the new president-elect. So I live in Winscombe, which is exactly the opposite end from Stuart, also on the edge. A little bit of my garden is actually in Sedgemoor, so I'm only just in North Somerset. I'm also a member of there's a two-member ward, Winscombe. It's not quite as harmonious in my situation as it is with Stuart and Ash, because even though I've tried very hard to work together with my Conservative counterpart, she has said that she's very capable of getting support from her own party. So, I mean, we do chat about things, but it's not, we haven't really cooperated on many things, just one or two, which is a bit frustrating because I'd like to get that more going. The panels I'm on is I'm on the health panel, which obviously has been very relevant recently, and maybe right at the end under AOM, any other business, I might add something about what might interest you all with my ex-professional hat on, but I won't bring that up now. I'm also on the adult social care panel and on the strategic planning one. And the strategic planning one is very important at the moment because, as you all know, and I'll bring up three really big issues which are either in my ward or near my ward, which are the big amount of money that that North Somerset got, which was applied for by the previous council, but this council has accepted it, and that's funding from the Housing Infrastructure Fund for some very controversial issues, but also for housing, which, as my predecessors have already explained, we don't really want, but we haven't got any choice. We have to find the best, most suitable areas to put houses. And this Housing Infrastructure Fund is basically funding the, hang on a minute, I can't really hear myself speak properly. Right, that's better. The Housing Infrastructure Fund is to fund three big schemes. The Banwell Bypass, which is the most controversial aspect of all of this. A secondary school in the near the Banwell Bypass, and then a big housing development. All of that is financially linked. And I'll start with the most controversial one, the Banwell Bypass. I really had sleepless nights over that, whether to support it or not, because I know that some of my residents will suffer from it, the ones downstream from where the new bypass emerges. The ones which are currently in Banwell will benefit. And as everybody, I would have been like turning back the Titanic with my bare hands. So I decided the best approach would be to support it, but support it and push very, very hard for environmental criteria to get the best possible solution that can go. So that's going ahead. The money has been accepted. I mean, it's still not 100% sure because there are lots and lots of stages and all of them have to be successfully completed for it to completely go ahead. But there's no definite route yet. There are three possible optional routes and it'll be consulted on at various stages. But the really good thing is that there is really strong commitment, like Bridget and Stuart have already said, to really set environmental standards and the climate emergency on top of the agenda. There will be an audit on the greenhouse gas emissions, a lifetime audit on it all the time at every stage of the consultation. There will be consultations on as much sustainable travel as we can possibly fit in. So cycle routes and walking routes and linking it to existing traffic connections like stations and the other commuter villages to really have an integrated approach to it all. And also In Banwell, there's a particular issue because, as you probably all know, the Mendip Hills are there's a huge amount of bats. We're in a bat protection zone, and there's quite an important bat protection zone which is going to be impacted by this. So that's going to be really tricky. But we've been told that Natural England is actually very supportive on trying to make us come up with the best solutions, and they're looking for an example of best possible practice, and they've selected us for that. So it all sounds good at the moment, so fingers crossed. That's the bypass. Then the other part of that is a secondary school with 900 places. That is a little bit further along. We had a SPEDA meeting consulting on that, and the officers had suggested to make it BREEAM, which is a sustainable standard with various elements to it. It's a fairly complex standard, but to make it BREEAM outstanding, which I would very much support, and passive house standard. But when they then came up with how much extra that would cost, then there were quite a few councillors who were concerned about that. So I don't know how far we're going to get with the actual environmental standards. I mean, the ambition is there, so I'm definitely going to push in that direction. And then the last thing, which is actually really, really good news, which has already happened, which is there's going to be a 425 new home development in Locking Parklands. The council has just sold the site to a developer, which is a very energy renewable developer. Keep Moat Homes. The actual houses will be prefabricated, timber framed, sort of collapsed. So prefabricated basically, which is much more energy efficient than the traditional way of building houses. There will be 30% affordable homes. There will be solar panels on every house. 15% of the houses will be zero carbon, and the rest will have a reduction of 75 to 80% in their carbon emissions. I don't actually quite understand the reduction from what, I presume from current requirements. So, and there will be electric vehicle charging points on every house as well. So that is really going to be a flagship development, and I'm really, really proud of that. So there's also some funding to fund groups of local volunteers that will take care of biodiversity aspects and other environmental aspects. So there's actually funding to support local groups who can follow on from that. There is a big issue with biodiversity because they don't think that we can actually, the ambition is to enhance it by 10%, probably cannot be done locally. So we may have to look to go somewhere else and expand biodiversity there. But maybe as part of what Stuart just described, the green infrastructure plan, it can be placed in some other strategic places where we can link habitats. So I think that is about it. Yeah. So yes, so I thought I'd leave the good news till the end, which is the housing development in Locking Parklands. And I shall go and plug myself in again.
I think we had an active transport strategy that is currently out for consultation. So with all of these things, I know that we talk about a lot about consultation, but it's because we want to feel like the public are getting an influence in shaping the direction of the council. And the council has historically been not that good at it. And we historically don't get that many responses, because if you've got 220,000 people living somewhere where if you hear back from 300, it's not really representative. Most scientists would confirm. And we also get a higher proportion of over 60-year-olds responding. And with some of those things, not exclusively, you're kind of thinking who's going to be worrying about their first home, or who already owns a home and is quite comfortable in their home and is protecting something. This is not true of the people on this call, but you know what I mean. The people who respond often are like, don't change anything, don't do anything, don't. And so we just do want more people to consult and respond and share what they care about, so that we get more voices in the room, and that can only help. I think we're all happy to take questions. And if you want to use or can use what do you use? The thumbs up or something like that? Oh, you can use the raise hands, can't you? Or you can use a thumbs up, either, whichever you're comfortable with. Ursula, are you happy keeping an eye on the raise hands in the participation thing? Is that okay?
Or wave frantically at the screen is the other way of doing it.
Yeah, but then it's very hard to... There we go. Tom's got a question. I think Tom, well, unless...
Right, Tom, yeah.
I'm going to go to Tom.
This is really a question for Karin and for the Adult Social Care Policy and Scrutiny Panel. Have you got a feel about how care homes and domiciliary care providers are faring at the moment in North Somerset? Because they were fairly fragile even before all this started. So I'm sure they've been under strain, and that of course is a large part of council's finances. So it's always been a concern. So is there any current update as to how things are going there?
Karin, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm afraid it's yes, you're quite right, Tom. It's an even bigger concern now, but because clearly they've been very badly affected by the pandemic. I know North Somerset Council has tried very hard to support them. They've in the early stages, when there was no PPE, they managed to source PPE and supply them with it. But yes, at the last meeting, that concern was definitely voiced again, that, you know, there are several which appear very fragile. So yes, it is a concern. I wish I could say it isn't, but it is.
I had an update today, which pretty much echoed that, but with quite significant seriousness. Yeah, I mean, so North Somerset I haven't touched on COVID very much, and I can answer some questions where I have some information. North Somerset had tracked below regional averages. It wasn't surprising that we tracked below Bristol, but over the past 2 weeks, just prior to us going into the national lockdown, our numbers were going up at a rate that was higher than our neighbours. So where we had been low, the rate of increase had started to spike, and we were becoming outliers in the rapid speed at which we were going up. Bristol already had high numbers, and South Gloss also saw its numbers going up. So prior to the government making its decision to put us into a national lockdown, Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloss were on the brink of declaring us to having a regional lockdown. So this was the same way that we were having to behave, because they also recognised, this is quite worrying, is that the Southwest has less, I think, hospital beds per head than other regions in the country. And so we can't get to those numbers in the same way, because we will not have the hospital beds with which to meet those needs. So the concerns are very serious right now, and the numbers that are going up are very serious. I feel like there was a slight level of complacency in North Somerset because we were tracking lower than elsewhere. I live in a small village. I felt like there was a kind of we haven't seen too much here. We're, a little bit of a we're okay bubble. And I think that if you can, you probably need to tell your friends and neighbours that we need to not behave like that. I mean, I think we know that because most of us are living through this right now in this lockdown, but it has become, our area has become more of a hotspot than it was. And obviously I never like sharing those kind of serious, no, it's important to say that. Likewise, they're seeing positive cases in staff. So although our hospital beds are filling up with COVID cases, we also have, they have also seen, I think, care staff and hospital staff testing positive, which again is another concerning factor. I asked about ventilators, and I asked about, because obviously at the beginning, earlier in the year, that was where the conversations were. I think that there were a lot more treatment methods that the medical staff are now more familiar with. And so it is not the case at this time that the COVID cases in hospital are requiring ventilators, but it is that they are requiring intensive care needs. And we asked about Nightingale hospitals, and they are only designed for people who are in induced comas and in that kind of ventilator state. They are not for patients of other conditions, and so that is the time when those hospitals will be used. And I believe that's because we don't have enough staff, and that's CCG. Because our CCG is because our medical hospitals are all linked to Bristol's hospitals and South Gloss. We all our services all together.
Yeah, can I just reinforce what Bridget was saying there? On one of the apps where they actually have estimated cases every day comes up, and North Somerset was tracking along about 300-400 cases. So that's the total, the estimated cases in North Somerset who have got COVID. In the last month, from the middle of October, we're now up to 1,700 a day. So we had been merrily tracking along 300-400. The last few weeks we've been shooting up. We're up at 1,700. So as Bridget said, we shouldn't be complacent. We have got a problem around here now. And
it's not any specific locations in North Somerset, and it's not any specific age group either. Of course, we knew a couple of months ago that it was the younger age group. It is not the case anymore, and it's tracking up through all age groups. We're still a bit higher on the 16 to 25s, but all the others are going up as well. And as we know, it's extra concerning when we see it in the over 60s. I feel like somebody, Peter, did you have your hand up a minute ago? No?
There's a question from Creston to Karin saying, how do we get details of the alternative routes of Bramwell bypass? There doesn't seem to be much on the website. Karin, can you put the link on the chat or tell us where to look?
I can send a sketch. It was presented at the SPEDA meeting, so but I don't think that's any secret. So I can share that slide with Preston if Preston would like to have a look. They're only dashed lines on a map. They're just very vague proposals at the moment, and it's genuinely up for consultation, like the other things. But yes, they're essentially three routes around Banwell. The little link that goes up Castle Hill is the same for all of them. But I can share that with you, Creston.
And also you asked about the green infrastructure strategy. So this is the process at the moment, is that the officers work on a document or a strategy. They bring it to the executive member, being me, and then we direct them to take it to the scrutiny panels. So that's the other elected members get to have a look. They contribute their thoughts, they contribute their ideas, and then it gets agreed that it goes out to consultation, at which point it will go out to the public. The public doesn't really get involved before then, because the elected members get the right, having been elected, to have a little bit more influence before going to the public. So I think, Preston, it sounded like you were frustrated that it wasn't coming to you yet, but I'm afraid that's just the order that it goes, because we get the privilege of having got elected and getting in on that conversation a little earlier. And that team is exceptionally stretched, and they are doing a fantastic job. They are a team of professionals committed to working really hard. I really value our environmental team, and I am really saddened at how much they get slated by the public on Facebook, when it's like, they're probably planting the wrong trees. They're probably going to trash our environment. And it's like, wait a minute, environmental people who care about trees, they probably are not going to do. It's a bit of a shame that the rhetoric around officers and trust is, I get that historically some people haven't done a great job, but hi, go for it, Steve and Sue Parsons in Long Ashton.
Valence and Steve Parsons.
Oh yes, good.
We like our own names.
Good, me too.
We like our own names. I was just going to say that I opened my North Somerset Life magazine that came through the door the other day with more excitement than I ever have in my 30 years.
Oh dear, what does that mean, Sue? What's happened to life?
Probably the last one was okay, but this one is rammed with environmental things, so that made me more happy than I have been since I've lived here.
Yay!
A long time.
Well, you helped us get in, so because you delivered lots of leaflets for us. So.
We're planning on doing more. We're planning on doing more. That's
Good.
what I want to say.
I was actually going to say
very
that
accessible, isn't it? It comes through the door. It's quite a good idea, really, isn't it? I wouldn't probably read it if it was on a computer, you know. I mean, I can work a computer, just don't really like reading things on screens. So, but it's very accessible, I think, to whoever goes, you know, arrives through the door. But yeah, I felt quite more cheerful reading that one. That's it. Steve?
No, Steve.
No, I've got nothing to say.
I completely agree. And anybody a bit new to knowing what the council does, if you've still got your copy, turn to the page on finance, because
I read it.
That's where you won't start understanding that it's not that there's loads of money, because adult social care takes up a lot of money, and it's not surprising, and children care, and you wonder what else is left at the end of the day. So, and that's understandable. But
yeah, I read that page. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know no one understands, and no one understands what swallows up the money really, and what, how that goes. But they can see it in there. Hopefully, they read it.
Yeah, helps people be more informed. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else want to say anything?
No. There's one more from me then, is we've just had in the last day or two, I think, Bridget, details of when the airport appeal process is going through to the inspector. It looks like it sort of kicks off over Christmas again and then sort of ploughs through next year. So we're trying to get a bit more information as to, you know, when members of the public have got an opportunity to be consulted on that, and we'll obviously communicate. We'll try and get a meeting with some of the guys, you know, who are on the fighting the airport, and we'll let you have that as soon as we can. But just to flag, there's going to be a lot of activity we need to do over the next 3-4 months on that as well.
Yeah, I had a good conversation with Phil Neve at lunchtime. So as Stuart said, myself and Karin all spoke against the airport application. Stuart and I were voting members, and we both voted against it, obviously. And it was delightful, and just such a good moment and good time to feel, having had inboxes full of please to vote against the airport, because you weren't allowed to be predetermined. You couldn't say, I'm with you. You could just say, I'm a Green Party. Have faith in me. And then when you'd done it and they wrote you nice postcards and they wrote you nice letters, that was a really good day. So I guess, not surprisingly, the awful airport strikes again has decided that despite its numbers going down, it will appeal that decision, and it claims that it still needs to expand. And I would question that. I think I went on the local news saying that, because they had at their peak, they had 8 million passengers and permission to go to 10. And they want permission to go to 12, and their future plan is to get to 20. So they're not getting 8 million right now. It seems absurd. So now there's an inspector process and an appeal process, and that happens by an external body. And we don't. I need to learn about this process. But yes, and that appeal isn't likely to be actually listened to, held, whatever. It's a public inquiry until July. But apparently the process is another 6 weeks of consultation, and apparently the airport can come in with new evidence, and we're kind of trying to understand all that. But the public can yet again come forward and say what they believe and what they think is right, based on a climate emergency, based on the economics of now, based on the impact on roads, based on the impact on wildlife and the environment. It's in the green belt, and all of those things we can and should write again. But we'll gather out what the best information is, what the best approach is, and what the best method is, and we'll get that information out to our out to Green Party members and keep them informed in how to do that. I mean, thousands and thousands of people wrote last time, and I believe that thousands and thousands will write again. They say that it's bad that it's over Christmas, but we're all stuck at home. We're all caring about this stuff. That doesn't go away, so I think it'll just... what I'm worried about is that it's going to absolutely ruin my summer holiday. So if I ever get a summer holiday, but you know, I mean, that can be Devon or Cornwall or bits of the Mendip. So just the fact that 4 weeks from something like 10th of July. Anybody for anything else?
Yeah, can I add something? I can't. Yes, I mean, the airport issue was the reason why I stood for election. So I was really pleased to have an input into it. And I actually managed to vote the second time round because it had to go to a second round, because we went against the officers' recommendations. And it was the very last council meeting we had in the council. It was just before lockdown. So we all made a special effort to turn up for that with masks, etc. Because it was already very dodgy, but we confirmed it, and the second vote was even stronger than the first vote. So that was good, but yes, it's very frustrating that the airport still feels they have to appeal. But I just wanted to add something completely different that is probably of interest to all of you, because we had a quick chat at the beginning of this with some of you when we joined. Just with my ex-professional hat on, I was asked what I thought about the new vaccine, and I just wanted to, you know, after the really worrying news that Bridget had to talk about, that is genuinely good news. It has very big promise. It's an excellent result, unexpectedly good. And unexpectedly quick. And it also has implications for other vaccines. If one vaccine works, it basically shows that this virus doesn't behave completely differently to most other viruses we know about. We can raise antibodies to it and killer T cells. And it obviously prevents getting ill for a while. That is the minimum. Hopefully it'll prevent other things like spreading the virus. That's not clear yet. It also hasn't been tested on children below 12 or on really elderly people, as far as I know. We haven't got much detail about the people that have been in the test, the ones that the 84 that contracted the virus. But you know, the consensus among scientists is that the company would not come out with a message like this if they were trying to hide anything, because it would come out and that would be absolutely destroy them. And the one thing that I find actually really, really thrilling is that the company, the brains behind this, is a small German biotech company, which was founded by 2 Turkish immigrants. Yeah. And I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. So, I found that really cheery. So yeah, so I just thought I'd share that with you, because I think we need a bit of good news of it. So we have to go through this winter. The vaccination for everybody is not going to be quick, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, I think.
Thanks for that, Karin.
Thanks for that, Karin. I'm gonna share one. Yeah, I completely. So yay, Ursula said let's do a quiz before Christmas. So we thought we'd have a Christmassy. Positive. Well, actually, Karen's going to hit us up with lots of like energy saving quiz questions, but that's the green way, I'm afraid. There's no fun without learning, and but do come with a glass of hot toddy or your warm cider or your whatever your tipple is. Mine is my homemade cherry vodka, baby. Yes, from my cherries from Karen's tree. The vodka wasn't homemade. What I was going to say is we have a lot of conversation about wanting to get more press articles and be better at that, so that we can get more members, so that people know that we're working hard. As Stuart and I both agreed that we both hate writing press releases, and we were like, oh, I don't want to do it. And Karin was like, I don't know if I could do it. She can write a very good long report. But what I was speaking to somebody last night, and they said, who was a comms person, and they said, you can always ask the journalist to call you and get them to do their job. So I did that today. I emailed them, and they pretty much do an interview over the phone. gather the stuff, and they have to turn it into an article. Shock horror. That's kind of what journalists are there for. So, so I just thought it was a revelation in, we've been saying for the past couple of months, who can write us a press release, who can write us a press release. But if another approach is, I can write to someone and say I've got a good story, and let them come to me and give them the facts, and they can turn that into a package, then that's that's a slightly different angle. I'm very comfortable doing that, but I'd like other people in this group to do that too. So I just thought I'd feed that back, and let's see what comes out in the articles. The things I wanted to talk about to the press this week was that Greens are working hard for them. So I've done a video to say that I've managed to save the Backwell Leisure Centre. Tom might not know that I've managed to do that, but he gave me a warning in the early doors that I might lose my leisure centre in Backwell. It's shut right now because of COVID. Well, it's shut because of lockdown in the spring. They realised there were capital works to fund the building works. There was a question mark, of course, about this because Backwell swimming pool has been the same since I was about 5 when I learnt to swim. I didn't grow up here, but I have been around here a long time. And over the summer, I thought that was a worthwhile facility because the residents need health facilities, and the council does not have money to build a brand new facility in Nailsea. It doesn't have a business case. It doesn't have a plan. So we would just end up with nothing in Nailsea and Backwell. So I said that spending the couple of £100,000, I don't know, that's a lot of money, but the couple of £100,000 now on boiler roof to keep it fit for the next 5 years was worthwhile. And I was successful in that kind of conversation on the executive, and it was a bit of a fight, and I did have to, repeatedly come on and say. And then this week, Stuart's done a fantastic job in bringing the nature emergency, and Karin did a fantastic job in holding to account the executive for children's services, because she checked on the system for getting free school meals through the holiday period. And when she phoned the number, she found that the service was not clear, it was not helpful, and it was not accurate, or it wasn't supportive for her village. So together, we've all covered some different bases in helping our communities. And that's the kind of stories that we need to share with others, because we are passionate about the climate emergency, but we're also passionate about social justice and helping people. So yay to everybody who's on the call, and thank you.
Well done, Bridget. I shouldn't think that was easy. I mean, I spent months on a scrutiny panel years and years ago, and I know that a very influential councillor from Nailsea would have had a very different view from you about the leisure centres, and I knew you'd have a fight on that. So well done.
You prepared me for a fight a fair while ago, and it's fair that it's not a modern building, but actually Ashley Cartman was also helpful, because he did a bit of numbers and went, well, you're talking 500 grand over 5 years, and that's 100 grand, and you've got 140,000 visitors a year, and that feels like an okay economics for keeping that facility going. And our taxpayers here don't get much out of, don't take too much from the council, so we felt like that was a one to keep pushing for. But it's a bigger, it's not ideal, but it's the way we are. So so that was us. So Ursula, can you share the dates and the details for the quiz so people can pop it in the diary? You're muted. You're muted.
Ursula, you're muted.
Sorry, it's to stop lots of background noise here. Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, Karin and Stuart, but it's Monday, the 18th of December at 8 o'clock, is that right? It's on the email which announced your AGM.
Yes, we still have to work on it, don't we, Stuart?
Yes, I received your email. I will work on it. In fact, actually, I've got to work on another quiz this weekend, so I'll probably do both at the same time.
Excellent.
So I hope everybody's going to come.
Of course. Monday the 21st.
Monday the 21st.
Start of Christmas
Yeah,
week.
I thought it was 21st because it's shortest day. Solstice.
Oh, yes, that was the other reason.
Oh, yeah. Great. Shortest day. Smashing.
And after that, it's onwards and upwards. I'll back over to David too.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions or anything, I think we'll call it a day. Thank you, call it an evening. Thank you very much for everyone attending, and thanks to our councillors, particularly for all the efforts they're putting in, and you know, a lot's hit them this year, which they weren't expecting, having to deal with around COVID, as well as everything else. And you know, we've got the airport and a lot of big stuff happening. So thank you very much to them for taking that on. And hopefully we'll see you all just before Christmas.